The Real Rhinelander podcast is sponsored by AirPro Fan and Blower Company. For more information, visit airprofan.com. Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of the Real Rhinelander podcast. Our guest today, Police Chief Lloyd Gauthier, soon to be, or I suppose as this episode airs, retired.
That is correct. As of January 9th, I will be done with my 35-year career as a law enforcement officer.
35 years. That's impressive. Wow.
It went by like that.
I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those that don't know you, which I'm sure several people do, but I always like to have guests kind of introduce themselves in their own words, give us a little bit of your history, and then we'll dive into some questions. But if you could, talk a little bit about your background. You are originally from Rhinelander.
I am born and raised.
Yeah.
Yes.
So give us the little history synopsis for us.
Sure. I'm born and raised Hodag. I went to Pelican Elementary, the old Pelican Elementary, not the nice new building they have now. And then I went to, obviously, the James William and the high school, and attended Nicolay College. And I worked most through high school at Hebner's gas station, which was located, it's a vacant lot now across from the Hodag store. But it was there that I got the opportunity to meet Chief Tony Paris of the police department at the time. And he kind of spurred my interest in a career, because at high school I had no idea what I wanted to do other than get done with school. That was my main priority. So he just got talking, and then I took a year off from high school, and then I enrolled in Nicolay College in the criminal justice program. And then from there, Chief Paris hired me as a dispatcher. In 1990, I started, and then I applied for the state patrol in 1991. So the only time I didn't live in Rhinelander was the 2 years that I worked for the state patrol. I went from beautiful Rhinelander, Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, to work in I-94 in Kenosha County.
That's a big change.
It was huge. I learned a lot, just the speed of life down there. Although I found winter to be very, very easy down there, although the people I worked with did not find winter very easy. They just didn't get like what we got up here. And then after a couple of years, in 1993, I came back to the police department as a patrolman. Chief Paris hired me as a patrol officer. I was there. Became a sergeant in 97, and that's kind of where my passion for leadership started. And then in 2002, I went to the sheriff's department. I was there for 15 years. And then in 2017, I got hired by the city for the third time as the chief.
Full circle.
It has been a full circle, yes.
Yeah. That is so impressive. Like a long-standing career. I think that there's something to be said about, finding passion in something that you're doing. And, a lot of like youth now and people now don't stay in a career for as long as you have. So it's something to be celebrated, I think.
Yeah, my whole career, from I started working, has always been serving people. I absolutely love that aspect of law enforcement. I like that aspect of at the gas station as a young kid, just talking to people. We just did a tour at the police department for the 7th graders, came through and did a tour of mainly the police squad. That's their office, the police car for the officers. And so I asked all the kids that came through, there was 4 groups, so over 100 kids came through, what do they think is the most important tool that a law enforcement officer has? And obviously the badge, gun, taser. But I said, no, actually the most important tool is their ability to talk to people. And that's my big concern for not only law enforcement, but for every job. There's so much dialogue being done now by texting and phone that the art of communication is becoming very difficult. And when you're put in the variety of situations that law enforcement is, you have to be able to communicate. Especially as you go up the rank, you start becoming a supervisor. You have to not only communicate with the public, but you have to communicate with your staff to get the things done that are a priority within the organization and the community.
Outside of your role as chief of police, can you talk a little bit about some of the other organizations that you might be involved with? I know we serve on the Rhinelander Partners Education Board together. Are there other things that people might know that your nonprofits or anything?
Yeah, during my time, I've like I mentioned about being on the state professional policing committee with training and standards down in Madison that um, writes manuals for every single officer in the state. So being on that committee for was quite a few years in the ethics capacity was a great enjoyment of mine. Um, Being on Partners in Education has been a lot of fun. And I'm being in leadership Oneida County. And one of the when I went through the second year of the program, my community project was the Career on Wheels, which is something that I'm still involved with today. 15 years later, we're still doing it for those fourth and fifth graders. That's a lot of fun put together. Um, so those organizations, I was on the whiteboard for a while. Um, and also a representative for the town of Newbold on the library board of trustees. I think it's important that you give back to your community and in some facet. So some of those volunteer opportunities, I just really enjoyed having the opportunity to be with other like-minded people who had a desire to grow Rhinelander, attending the Forward Rhinelander meetings. Um, just great organizations with the interest of pushing Rhinelander forward and professional standard. Just those have been fun to be in those capacities.
Sure. Cool. So you've talked a little bit about servant leadership, and I know that's very important to you. And I mean, you've been heavily involved in our leadership program the last, 10, 15
About that, yeah.
years. I mean, I think as long as the program has been going on. Can you talk just a little bit about your background with leadership? And I know you've done some additional training and things like that too.
Sure. When I first got promoted in 1997, I was the youngest sergeant to be promoted in the Department of History. And I knew the city of Rhinelander would invest enough in me to make me a supervisor. Well, I worked for a lot of supervisors, and I didn't feel like that was really a calling or a good way to lead. And then I found into that Mike Prom was hosting these LeaderCast things, which is a webinar where he would bring in John Maxwell. And so I would go attend these and watch this video of this guy talking about leadership. And it became, I don't want to be a supervisor. I want to be a leader, which led me to developing into what resources are there and how do you grow as a leader. And at the time, John Maxwell had a CD club. So I signed up for it, became a member. So just like back in the day, you had the Book of the Month Club but every month I would get a CD on a different leadership principle and a little workbook that you'd work through with. And so I did that. And then for many years, attended whatever session of leadership I could get my hands on. And then when I became a captain at the Sheriff's Department, I got a message from the John Maxwell team saying, hey, would you like to become a certified member of John Maxwell coach, mentor, trainer? And so I talked to the person and I said, it was a financial investment. And I thought, I don't know. But the question that was praised or said to me was, if not now, when? So I hung up with the phone call, but that little statement just resonated in me. If not now, when? So my wife and I talked, and I made the investment to go through the 4-day certification in Orlando, Florida. It's the first time ever in my life that I was in a room with 5,000 people, and especially as a law enforcement officer, you're always wondering what's going on behind you and around you. To be in a room of such peace of people who all they want to do is add value to other people was truly remarkable experience for me. And I've attended law enforcement leadership, but the John Maxwell leadership team is probably the best leadership training I've ever gotten, and is something I use every day within my work unit.
Yeah. And you've helped for the last several years lead our book portion of our leadership class, which we've read some John Maxwell books through the years. Is there any, if there was a leadership book that you would recommend to someone? Is there anyone specifically?
Oh, there's so many of them. There's, I'm not, there's other leaders out there too, other than John Maxwell.
Mhm.
I think just for someone to get motivated to get something and start their leadership journey,
Mhm.
you know, one of the things that I think is important for people to understand one of the laws of principle. John has a book called The 21 Laws of Leadership. And one of the laws is the law of the lid, which states that your ability to lead is really depending on your leadership lid. So if you can picture maybe like a little pot that you would cook stew or soup in, it's a smaller container, that's your leadership lid. And you can only grow within that leadership. You can only have influence within that leadership. Your organization or the people you lead can only grow to your lid. And you can't lead beyond that. And the only way you can do that is by investing in yourself, growing your leadership. And then you start moving to maybe a big kettle
Mhm.
where you have more leadership ability, more influence, and your organization can grow. And the exciting part about that is then the people that are under you can grow and they can expand their influence and their abilities to lead. That's the exciting part when you see other people getting that torch and getting that fire, thinking there's more to having a title.
Mhm.
For obviously I've been in law enforcement for 35 years and we have a lot of titles.
Mhm.
Sergeant, lieutenant, captain, corporal, chief, sheriff, and none of the titles gives you leadership. It gives you the position, but it doesn't give you leadership.
Mhm.
That is something that you have to develop. And unfortunately, in our profession, you can look in the paper, read the news. There's law enforcement leadership failure a lot in our profession because we have leaders, we have supervisors, not leaders.
Mhm.
And that's probably one of the things that I became as a chief. I got involved in the state training with the chiefs and to bring home this fact that just because we have the title of a chief doesn't mean that we're a leader. We have to look at ourselves and develop ourselves.
Mhm. I knew this was going to be a good conversation. So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit here. I mean, obviously, we're going to ebb and flow, but I have a few questions. So, obviously, you grew up in the Rhinelander area and came back. I mean, was there ever a question that you were going to ever go somewhere else, or has it just always been Rhinelander? And if so, why?
No, I would never have left Rhinelander. When I was going through Nicolay College, our instructor out there was Dick Cosklin. He was retired from LAPD. So he talked me into applying for LAPD. And so I did. And at the time, they had a hiring freeze.
Mm.
And so, but the thing that he said is that in law enforcement, you got to get your first job. Once you get that first job as a sworn officer, then you can make the move to where you want to end your career.
Sure.
And there's no question in my mind that I never wanted to leave Rhinelander, but I had to get that first job.
Mhm.
And that first opportunity was with the Wisconsin State Patrol. So I accepted the position, and a month later, I got an offer from the LAPD, which I turned down. I could not see myself living in California. So my whole desire was to never leave. My family's from here, but you got to do what you got to do to start your career
Mhm.
with the opportunity, knowing that in the future you can come home.
Sure. And is there something, just about Rhinelander in the community that just really makes you know that it's like home? Or like, we talk a lot about, people that have moved here and why they've stayed, but like from the perspective of someone who grew up here, is there anything about Rhinelander that is like sticks out as to why you just don't want to leave? Do you not get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think just the general atmosphere of the community. I mean, I remember just going through high school, and I was not a good student. In middle or in grade school, when I went to Pelican, our custodian was Roland Hanel, and I was not a good kid. I'm sure, looking back now, I probably could have been diagnosed with some ADHD. I spent a lot of time in the hallway, uh, disruptive behavior, and Mr. Hanel would always come down the hallway with his little cart, and he would look at me and, out in the hall again, Lloyd? Yes, Mr. Hanel. So he would pick me up, put me in his trash cart, and I would stomp down his garbage, and he'd lift me out. And then he'd see you tomorrow. Yep. So I really thought I was going to be a custodian. That was my on the job training. But that person, I had a teacher, Mrs. Gardner, in 6th grade, Mr. Kitsey, Mr. Scandon, so many teachers that invested in my life that were huge parts of this community.
Mhm.
And it, to me, it was like, why would you leave a community where there's so many people that were invested in making you successful? I know that when I became a police officer, I ran into a couple of my grade school teachers, Mrs. Reed, Mrs. Hool, and they would just shake their head like, we just can't believe.
Didn't see that coming.
No, but it's the investment that the
Yeah.
community made in me. And so why would I want to leave a community where it's so grounded? And you look at what they're doing at the school now and the facilities and the art of just trying to do more with less. I mean, that's a huge thing for any governmental agency.
Mhm.
But I think that just the community in itself, how we rally around the causes and the needs of our community, is something that is really important to me.
Mhm. Yeah. So obviously, law enforcement is a very important career. Um, a question that I like to ask is, how do you see your work contributing to the betterment of the community? And obviously, I mean, you guys have a direct impact on the community. Do you care to share a little bit about like how law enforcement really does contribute to the overall well-being of a community?
Sure. Let me start by talking about my impact directly has been, I've taught and trained thousands of officers around the state of Wisconsin in ethics and leadership. I was instrumental in helping write an ethics manual for law enforcement, for patrol, and for corrections. So my impact in the law enforcement community has been felt statewide for my passion for doing things right. Um, and that was the passion that I brought as the chief is, I work for the state patrol, I work for the sheriff's department, and I work for a police department. And any opportunity I have to talk to somebody about a law enforcement career, it's always like those 3 levels. If you want to impact your community, if you want to have an opportunity to really make a difference, it's a police department by far. A local small police department gives you the opportunity to really impact your community. You get to know the people, you get to do foot patrol, bike patrol, you can get out of your car, you can talk to people at the park. When you're working the interstate as a trooper, that's your influence area. A deputy, you could be in Cajun one day or out to Monaco the next. It's really hard to impact communities where you can as a police officer. So having the ability to understand that as an officer, that you're not, it's not us versus them. It's we, and that we cannot police by ourselves. Long time ago, law enforcement, there was a saying about the public are the police and the police are the public, meaning that we're only as effective as the community allows us to be effective. How much do they want to invest in us? And it was difficult in the 90s. The police department did not have the best reputation. And that was which driven me to want to get promoted, is to see, like, when we go to a call for service, we have an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life and not just be there as a robot. This is the law. This is how we're going to enforce the law. But what can we do to problem solve so that we don't have to make things? I think one of the most remarkable things I've seen in my career is just what hopefully my replacement, Josh Camilleri, has started with the Recovery Coach program, where we're taking a different look at people who struggle with substance abuse. It's not a penalty-based system because there's no winners in that.
Right.
We're looking at how do we change people's behavior to impact their family so that they can be reconnected with their kids, because a lot of the people that struggle with addictions have really their loved ones have just carved them out of their life because of theft or lying or just not being able to be relied upon. So to rebuild those relationships, that's huge for our community, because we have a huge drug and alcohol condition here that people struggle with, and they need help. They don't need to be penalized. There are some people that unfortunately that has to be the case, but some people that they just need to know, how can I get help? And what are the options and opportunities? And to have a recovery coach working at the police department, working with these people, is absolutely game changing for some of these people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting.
So that program, when did that officially start? A few years ago now.
Yeah, it's been probably 4 years.
Sure.
But Josh did a lot of that prior to that, just on his own. You know, visiting people who he knew were struggling. You know, we've had people come into the police department handing in drugs because they knew that they kept it, they'd either use it or sell it, and they didn't want that. They wanted something better for their lives. And we didn't take that opportunity then to arrest those people. We thanked them for making a decision that was positive for them, and then we got that stuff off of the street and disposed of. Excuse me. So that, I think that is one of the things that when we talk about being part of the community, is looking at law enforcement differently. Now you look at, you know, we can look at things that I'm proud of that happened during my term as the chief. Is one is body cameras. You know, you look at people have Ring cameras. Now they're putting up, the sheriff's department's putting up license plate readers and the flock cameras. Everybody's looking at what everybody else is doing. Well, as a law enforcement leader, you need to say, all right, it's time for a lot of people to look at what we're doing. Be honest, be upfront, have body cameras for your staff to go out there so people can see what we're doing, and not hiding behind, or not hiding, I guess, and just not being transparent about everything that we do. Because we're putting in a lot of situations that are not easy and are not fun to watch. But because the camera doesn't show everything, but it does give you an idea of what the officer is going through. So definitely that's being part of the community, is being transparent by bringing technology on to show this is what happens. This is what we're doing with. And it's it's a kind of accountability for my staff, but it's also an opportunity to sell what we're doing to the public, and why this job is important, how this job can be very difficult at times, and the joy of the job.
Yes. Okay, you talked a little bit about this, but I think that maybe we could share a little bit more. Did you have any specific mentor or very influential person that helped shape your early career?
I wouldn't say directly. I mean, I certainly valued Chief Tony Paris. He was a different, very much a working chief. The things that he told me when I was talking about, you know, I'm a dispatcher now, but I have aspirations to be on the road. So he gave me some advice. Dick Cosklin, the instructor at Nicolay College, really invested in my life to really to get me to understand the commitment I'm making to the profession. And then once I get in the profession and start working, that's when I really noticed the lack of mentors and the lack of leaders. So that was one of the things that drove me to mind to be more than just a supervisor. So, but definitely early in my life, it was teachers. Teachers are huge.
So taking off that a little bit, retiring, if you could go back to new recruit Lloyd, is there any like advice or anything or if you're thinking about going into the career, what kind of advice might you give somebody?
Well, certainly, I think the biggest thing is, once you get started at an agency, is pick carefully who you choose to be your mentors and who you choose to hang out with. They can have a direct impact of you having a very successful career or you having a very short career. Because unfortunately, not every law enforcement officer that's in a position should be a law enforcement officer. You know, in our profession, once you make the probation period, it's very difficult for management to remove an officer from their position. But as a young officer, you really need to choose carefully. You know, I like the way that person does their job. I like the way that person talks to people. You might want to blend a couple of those together. And most importantly, not to be afraid to stand up for what's right. There's a couple times in my career where I got put in awkward situations where I spoke up for truth, and it's not often well received within my profession,
Mhm.
but that's what you have to do because the community demands it. The
Mhm.
community demands for us to be people of integrity, and we're not above the law by
Mhm.
any means, but you'll work with people that certainly have that perspective that because they have a badge, they're better, they're different than some people. And every human life has value.
Mhm. So you talked a little bit about some of the accomplishments that you have or
Mm.
that you look to. Is there something or some more things that you're really proud of over the course of your career that stand out?
Um, yeah, it's, I obviously when you get to this point in your career, you start thinking about those things, and it's very at times emotional for me to drive around the community and look at different houses. I've been in a lot of homes in this community
Mhm.
during my career, and some have some really hard memories, emotional memories, um, death of kids.
Mhm.
I have was always difficult giving death notifications.
Mhm.
I got punched a few times, a lot of anger because we're delivering the worst news.
Right.
Um, and so as I look back, it's, you know, you don't see, once you start going through the rank, you have less opportunity to be on the road working with people every day.
Mhm.
And if there's one thing as a chief that I missed the most was that opportunity to be on the road and being out dealing with people every day and having that opportunity.
Mhm.
Those were times that I really valued,
Mhm.
was having being able to be um, in someone's life in crisis and then bring in a light of hope.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I always carried with me cards and brochures and pamphlets of different programs in our community, because I thought when I arrived with all these resources, and some families just didn't know
Mhm.
that there was help out there.
Mhm.
So having that opportunity to do that, as chief, obviously the body cams,
Mhm.
also the radar speed signs. I want our community to feel like it's a walkable community,
Mhm.
and to do that, we have to slow people down. I don't have the staff to have an effective speed enforcement,
Mhm.
because we're working on numbers that the police department had in 1969, 17 sworn, and times have changed. Um,
Yeah.
so those things, little things, making our front entrance to the police department handicap accessible
Mhm.
really was something that I just could not understand why it took so long, over 40 years to make that front doors handicap accessible.
Sure.
Having um, a drug take back in our lobby, having our Narcan um, stand in our vestibule that's open 24 hours a day for anybody that needs it. Those are things that have an impact on the community and are important to me. But definitely, as I look back, it's the time as an officer that you have the opportunity to, you know, uh, help somebody in need.
Mhm.
Just smile at a kid, wave at a kid.
Mhm.
That's why I like doing public events, the downtown trick or treat. That's been so much fun for me to be
Mhm.
able to have an opportunity to interact with people in a positive way.
Mhm.
Another huge event the last probably 5 years that we've been involved in is the Police Lights of Christmas. And that organization started with a Christian radio station over in the Green Bay area, Q90, who had a passion for helping the communities during Christmas time. So Culver's signed up, Quick Trip, many other organizations sign up and support this fundraiser. So we go to Culver's typically in July, where we do a share day, we do lunch and dinner. Those proceeds go sent to this nonprofit organization. They give us gift cards. And so the gift cards we then give out to people in need at Christmas time, whether
Mhm.
it's Walmart for food or maybe help with maybe a present or two. to Quick Trip for gas, Culver's for food.
Mhm.
So we have an opportunity to give back to the community by just giving some of our time by running meals out.
Yeah.
I make it a fun day. The biggest tip I got was $50 from somebody who asked me not to sing. But it's such a great opportunity to interact with people when it's not an enforcement issue,
Sure.
because um, when it becomes an enforcement issue, um, there's not a lot of fun in that.
Right.
Nobody wants to receive a citation. No one wants to get stopped for speeding or something. Um, and so those opportunities are for people to understand that we're just people too.
People too.
We're
Yeah.
just doing a job like any other job out there. It's just a more of a spotlight job,
Mhm.
because we have the ability to take people's freedoms away.
Mhm.
And that, to me, is huge. And that responsibility is huge. And every officer better understand that what they're doing has a significant impact on someone's life.
Mhm.
And you better know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the questions I had kind of tags off of that a little bit. Let me find it here. Um, Thinking back to leadership, and you've talked about, being out in the community and, serving your community. How do you balance the needs of your staff versus the needs of the community? Like, how do you, as a leader, make sure that they're taken care of too?
That's a difficult question, especially when resources are tight. There's times where you have to say no. Every year when we prepare for our budget, we create a wish list of like, this is be nice to do. The reality is you can't always do, just like your home budget. You can't always do all the things you want to do. It comes back from wants back to needs. And then making sure, especially a small police department where you don't have the opportunities that maybe a sheriff's department does, it's important to get people to understand that culture can be more important than opportunities. Having a culture where people feel like they're valued, they're cared for, they have a say in the organization. Having staff meetings where people can actually talk about what's going on in the organization and share their concerns, their ideas. I'm one person. I don't have every idea. I don't always have the best idea, but collectively we can come up with some really good ideas. So giving them input. I work for organizations where nobody had a say in how to arrange or what kind of police cars to buy. And I thought, well, as a chief or the sheriff, you're not in that car. That's their office. Give them the input because they're in there every day. So giving them say and give them input, giving them responsibilities to help with the organization when you can't give them other maybe material things to help to keep morale going and keeping an open door policy. I think are some of the things that you can do.
Yeah. I think that's true in any small organization. Like, culture is very important. I mean, not even in any small organization, any organization, culture is very important. And I think we've seen that, locally, even how some businesses tend to rise to a really high list because they have a really great culture. And it is something that we strive for. And yeah, it's very important. That was actually a different question that I had.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity. I have obviously a lot of friends that work in different capacities, and I remember meeting one for lunch one day, and the person that waited on us was extremely pleasant, very well knowledgeable about their product, their food, and their services. And this leader from this organization gave them a business card and says, if you're ever looking for a different job,
Yeah.
So that's what I think is cool about the Leadership Oneida County group program is you may start coming in at one job, but because of the opportunity you have to network and sell yourself, you see the different opportunities within the community and might jumpstart a different career path for somebody.
Yep.
So understanding that you have an opportunity to impact wherever you are, and look for those opportunities for people that are out there, especially our profession right now. It's so hard to find quality people. This job, when I first started, government was the job. I mean, you had great fringe benefits. You had you didn't pay anything in your retirement. Your employer paid their portion and your portion. So if you're a young kid getting out of college and you're like, I could go into law enforcement for 25, 30 years, retire at age 50 to 53, and then I'm young enough to start another career and I have a full retirement and I didn't pay one penny for. Well, all that changed under Act 10, under Governor Walker, and those benefits aren't there anymore. It's just like any other job. So now when you have a college kid that's graduating going, what career path do I want? Do I really want to go into law enforcement where it's just like any other job? And it's highlighted one
High stress.
high stress.
Yeah.
I make one poor decision. I'm on the front page of a paper or the lead news
Mhm.
story, or I could go into IT or something else that, the benefits are better, the pay's better. So that looking for quality people for the future of this profession is really going to be
Mhm.
a challenge. It
Yeah.
already is, but it's going to be even a bigger challenge moving forward.
Yeah, it's such a public career,
Mhm.
like you said. I mean, any move you make is
Yeah. Well, you
yeah.
have to have people of integrity. You're
Mhm.
talking about people's freedoms
Mhm.
and their rights, and if you have people that are taking those jobs for the wrong reasons or aren't you're not training your staff to understand constitutional rights, that's a big deal.
Mhm.
I mean, United States of America is a awesome country, and we have lots of freedoms. And for us to be able to take them away, you better know what you're doing as a law enforcement officer.
Mhm. Very true. One of the questions I actually had was, how has law enforcement changed through the years? And so you
Mhm,
kind of touched on that with maybe the benefit side of
mhm.
things, but is there anything else that's stuck out in your mind that's like how something that has majorly changed since you started?
Oh yeah, technology.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you sat into a police car in the early 1990s and now you sit into a police car, it's a completely different environment.
Sure.
So much of our job now is electronics and technology, and still consider myself an old school cop. I still carry an old style duty belt. I don't have the vest with everything on it. Um, you can still do your job without the technology,
Mhm.
and I have to remind staff sometimes with that. Um, but that has been a huge benefit for the careers. The computers in the car, the technology, the information at your fingertips, mapping. So
The mapping thing always kinda sticks out to me too, in our leadership class
mm,
when we toured the dispatch
oh yeah.
center at the,
Hmm.
sheriff's office. The mapping system that you guys have is just astounding.
Yeah, the GPS on the squad. So especially you look at larger jurisdictional things like the sheriff's department. When you call 911 as a citizen, you need help, and that E911 dispatcher takes your call. It plops on that map, and they can see where every squad is and who's the closest car.
Mhm.
I mean, that technology is amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, they use that, that the cell phones with GPS coordinates now, or you call 911 if you're a hunter and you're lost in the woods. You call 911 now, and they can navigate search and rescue right to where you're at.
Mhm.
So those things are amazing. It certainly makes things safer. As an officer, you're going to a high stress call, um, and to understand like the city as a police officer, they're blocked, so it's pretty easy to figure if I'm going to the 600 block
Mhm.
of you know Messer Street, I'm
Mhm.
pretty much can figure out where that is or whatever. But if you're going to a fire number in the county and you drive by one number, that next driveway could be a mile away.
Mhm.
And when you get to the driveway could be a mile long.
Mhm.
So to be able to bring up the map of the 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 map and to look at the property and see how long those things are, it's an officer safety thing. It's huge. Having that, you know, you don't write anything anymore. Everything's done, computerized citations,
Sure.
computerized um, accident reports. When I started, everything was a bubble form. You filled in a bubble, you got your ruler out, and you drew the accident.
Mm.
So technology has been huge, and that unfortunately has been a big part of enforcing too. Is there's a lot of crimes that are being committed electronically,
Mhm.
so the the ability to investigate is becoming more difficult because you could have crimes being committed by people who aren't even in our country
Sure.
because the internet and the availability of
The
of
fraud calls and things like that. Yeah.
constantly. There's people that work harder at not getting a job to get free money than there are actually if they would actually work. Mhm.
Okay. There was one other question that I was thinking about. I mean, one of the things that we've talked a lot about as a community, certainly through the last few years, is mental health.
Mhm.
And not only like as a community, but even within the law enforcement career path. Like, do you have any messages or things you would share as it relates to taking care of your mental health?
Sure. Overall, it's even when we deal with the mental health chapter 51 of the Wisconsin statutes, it's so antiquated, and so there's a process now to rewrite it, because when we work with people and we get calls, which is one of our major calls for service, is a health and welfare check.
Mhm.
Um, and it's always been that way here. My whole career up here, we've had a high number of mental health commitments. Even I remember in the 90s, we had a huge conference just down the road at the old Holiday Inn where people from around the state came to talk about mental health, because Oneida County was in the top per capita for the number of mental health commitments.
Mm.
Um, um, so it's we you know we just didn't know why this area. In law enforcement, we unfortunately make jokes. There must be something in Boom Lake that draws people here, because it's a large number of our calls for service, and it becomes difficult for a small department because that's usually a 2 officer call, and if you're going to the hospital with somebody, and they have a small facility here, so a lot of times you're unfortunately having to drive them to Winnebago and Oshkosh, Marshfield. So trying to get the state to recognize is that we need resources up in northern Wisconsin, because you're taking these people who are struggling with mental health, and now you're removing them from their support network, taking them 2-3 hours away. That's not going to help them in the long run, So certainly, I think going into this time of year, it was cold this morning. You know, the weather change, we see that a lot
A
with,
lot of social
yep,
isolation.
that, and then that you don't get outside as much. There's not as much sunshine. Those are things are huge. Communicating, being around people is huge for your mental health. Being locked up in cold winter months is not good. It's not healthy. You need to get out. I think that's why the opportunity to have a place like the Dome to go walk, Walmart to go walk, just for people to get out and get outside, I think is important for their mental health. Because if you need to get um, to see if it's somebody in that area, it takes forever to get in and get an appointment. Especially if you're a juvenile. There's a huge lack of resources for teenagers who are struggling, and I'm really concerned about that age group, because there's so many people with social media telling them who they should be and what they should be, and they're still trying to figure out life themselves. you know Life is difficult as it is, let alone being influenced by somebody who doesn't even live here. So making sure that you make good decisions on what you do with your time, limit your alcohol and drug use. That's There's severe negative things when it comes to that. It just creates more spirals for you to go down. um, but seek help if you need help. And um, we have a community of caregivers that are out there, but it's hard to get into them because we are a small place. Um, but don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help.
Yeah, I think that is definitely important, and
Hmm.
and NAMI has grown through the last couple of
Yes.
years too as a great resource as well.
Drop-in centers, um, the helpline, just opportunities for people to get help.
So we've talked a little bit about some of the rewarding parts of your job, and I just wondering if you would share maybe some of the difficult parts of your job. I think that's important to show that it is,
Yeah.
like we've said, a public
Mm.
career, and it is a very important job. And if you'd want to just share a little bit about.
Yeah, instantly when I think about the things that have been difficult, have been the death notifications.
Mhm.
You know, I remember having to go out into the Willow as a deputy, had to get someone to bring a boat out
Mhm.
and go find a parent of a soldier that was killed in Iraq. That was difficult delivering that news. Knocking on someone's door. I worked night shift most of my career as an officer, and delivering that news. Um, those things were they still,
Mhm.
we talk about compassion fatigue in our profession, and I'm full.
Mhm.
Those things, um, especially when I became a sergeant. um, I always thought that I used the realization that I'm the supervisor. I get a little bit more money than the officer. So when those calls came in, you know, I'm the one that made the decision to go and
Mhm.
make the notification, because uh, they're never easy,
No. Yeah.
you know, and just the sadness of people that don't have hope,
Mm. Mhm.
the mental health calls where people attempted to hurt themselves. um, Very difficult when
Mhm.
people feel like they have nowhere else to go,
Mhm.
no hope, and they see the only alternative is to end their life. Those are extremely difficult. And then just trying to rationalize with people when they're being irrational,
Mhm.
you know, that we're not the bad guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're viewed as the bad person because we show up in the uniform and stuff, and we're just there trying to bring that chaos back to some level of normalcy.
Mhm.
And people don't want that sometimes. And if they're the primary aggressor and we have to take enforcement action, then we're the really bad guy. And then sometimes the victims will turn on us and see us as a bad guy now when we have to do our job.
Mhm.
So being in some no-win situations has
Yeah.
been difficult. Certainly there are periods when I first became chief where we had just city government was chaos.
Mhm.
That was difficult to navigate that. When you just we have an opportunity and obligation to serve our community with integrity, and there wasn't always integrity there.
Mhm.
um, so those are difficult times.
Yeah.
um, you know um, Death of a few officers that I knew during my career, uh, difficult.
Mhm.
Going to funerals, um, it just those things are, you'll never forget them as an officer.
Yeah.
Those times where, it's like, oh, I wish I was on vacation tonight,
Mhm.
you know. But you're working and you have to do that because that's what your sworn oath is to do.
Mhm.
But there's an impact on you as a person.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's very true.
And for me, the only way I've gotten through this career is my faith.
Mm.
That is huge for me because it would be very difficult to deal and see what we see and deal with, not to have a core solidness to yourself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Makes sense. So, as you're preparing for retirement, I mean, by the time this airs, we
Mhm.
said you'll be
Mhm.
retired. What is something that you hope your legacy will be within the department or the community? Like something that you hope that people remember with your leadership that sticks around?
Um, that I was taller than I actually am. I think just the fact that I'm passionate about people's growth, and that if you choose to accept a position of leadership, I know that when I took the chief's job, I met with the local newspaper and the owner, and I said, I did not get appointed this job. I did not get forced into this job. I sought this job and I run after it. And with that comes all the responsibility. And if you're seeking a leadership position, no matter what organization you work for, you need to understand your commitment to the people that are going to be working for you, and you better be working on yourself. So, if I would say having a legacy would be driving people to to develop their leadership,
Mhm.
to have a desire to pursue personal growth,
Mhm.
um, which is not a big seller up here in the Northwoods.
Mhm.
But you have an obligation, taking a leadership position should not be about yourself so that I get more money, I get more opportunities, I get more time off. It should be about making the environment better for those that work for you.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. Um, I mean, like I said, we've been involved in the Leadership Oneida County
Mhm.
program. I mean, that's been one of the most rewarding things for me here, like to be
Mhm.
able to see all of these people go through this program and better learn about the community, but in
Yeah.
turn, better learn about themselves.
Oh yeah, our community. I think, and I look at just like probably the last 5 or 6 years. I look at who we have in city council now, and their commitment to is on the right path. I
Mhm.
look at the stability of the chamber with you as a director, um, because we were going through chamber directors as quick as we were going through city administrators for a while. That's never good for anything.
Yeah.
Having history and having the historical um, recollection of your organization is huge.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll be the last officer. I am the last officer that was hired by Tony Paris. So when I retire, his legacy of people that he hired is over.
Mhm.
Um, and he served his community well for many years.
Yeah.
Um, as I'm the 14th chief in the department history, and we became a police department in 1894.
Which I was gonna say that's
Yeah,
crazy to think
yeah.
about. That's a long,
Hmm.
a long time, but not a lot of
No,
chief roles.
the first couple people were elected constables, and then we became a police department, and then so you look at all those years and only 14 chiefs. Some have served a long time period,
Mhm.
um, and that's a testament to the department, to the city, the individual's commitment to the community. um, and in that time period, from all the research that I've seen, I'm the first Rhinelander born chief of police. So that's another pride thing that
Yeah.
that I an honor thing, more
Mhm.
than pride, but honor,
Mhm.
that I had the opportunity to serve my hometown in that capacity, to try to make our community safer. That's one thing that um, when we don't have a ton of violent crime, but when it does happen, we have a almost 100% clearance rate on those type of crimes. So I feel our community is incredibly safe going forward. I think that the people that I was involved with hiring and promoting during my time are excellent in their roles, are committed to the community. I'm hoping that Josh will be appointed chief. He's definitely committed to the community, him and his family.
Mhm.
So those things are exciting about the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions is like, what's your next hope for the police department or the community in general? Is there something that you're hopeful for, knowing that you may not directly be involved in
Mhm.
it, but
Well, I look at our needs of our community, and housing is huge.
Mhm.
Childcare is huge. Uh, Things that you've talked about in prior podcast. But I'm concerned about, just the financial situation of how do you keep, like every cost going up every year,
Yeah,
and
providing the level of service
yep,
that is required with
yep,
the
and then
dollars given.
making sure that you have a police department that has the identity of the community is huge.
Mhm.
You don't want to lose that.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to be a big thing, is keeping up with one of the biggest frustrations I have as chief is unfunded mandates that come down from state and federal government.
Mm.
That that's a real concern about small government
Mhm.
moving forward. Is you look at the law changes and the requirements. We deal with a lot of confidential information, people's driver's license record and history.
Mhm.
Thing that we have to keep extremely confidential, and the levels, the two-part authentication, and the technology that involved in it, and all that is super expensive.
Mhm.
You look at how quickly laws change, and just the mandates on elections to make sure that they're fair and
Mm.
safe. And um, those are going to be a financial burden on any local municipality
Mhm.
moving forward. But policing is huge. You have to have a police department that's committed to the community, that wants to work with the community. um, and it's not cheap.
No, it's
Um,
not.
and um,
I mean,
uh,
every year too, this
yeah.
budgets that you see, I
Hmm.
mean, it's getting harder and harder.
Yep. This last budget cycle was the hardest in my tenure as chief. We had to cut a lot of opportunities and resources. Um, but that's what you do. You
Mhm.
do the same thing with your home budget.
Mhm.
You have to make it work, um, and making sure that it's huge for the leader in the organization to share that vision with them.
Mhm.
Um, since I've been chief, I've always every month we get a printout of where our budget is, and I post that so that the staff understands that every decision that we make, every penny that we spend, there's accountability for it,
Sure.
and that's going to be even more moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So, retirement. What's
Yes.
next? What's next for Lloyd?
Man, I don't know. Um, I I like the opportunity to serve people.
Mhm.
So I don't know what that will look like. I'm certainly passionate about leadership. I would love to do some coaching for people. Um, I just don't know.
Mhm.
Take a little bit of time off
Yeah.
to look at my own mental health and my compassion fatigue, and um, just just to go
Yeah. Breathe a little bit.
and get rid of one phone. That's I've never. It's been a long time since I've only had one telephone.
Uh-huh.
One cell phone. So that'll be nice. Um, and probably one of the it may sound weird, but not knowing the things that people don't know
Mhm.
is going to be nice.
Yeah.
You know, being involved and you drive by a house and you know what happens in that
Mm.
house and nobody else knows.
Yeah.
That's a burden,
Mhm.
and it's sadness. And you grieve for people. I can get emotional very easily talking about um, the opportunities and the things that people have. When I see people in Walmart or Triggs, and I'm like, oh, 15 years ago,
Mhm.
10 years ago, 25 years ago, you know, generational things. We're dealing with people that I'm on third generation of families
Mhm.
that I dealt with. Those are those are things that I can just try to let go of a little bit, and then spend some time with my family
Mhm.
mhm, and figure out what my next. I'll always be working. I love work, so I won't be sitting in a rocking chair anytime soon.
Very, very good. A much needed breath.
Hmm.
So, I think my last question really is there anything else you want to share? Any lasting
Yeah.
messages or anything that sticks out in your mind that you'd like to share?
Um, I think we live in a blessed community. I think there's people working hard to make our community better every day. Forward Rhinelander, I mean, so many organizations, the Y, um, the chamber, the dome. There's so many opportunities that um, one of the trends I like seeing is a lot of people that have been Rhinelander graduates who have left or have come back are starting investing in their community. They're building things.
Yeah.
They're building a Rhinelander. I think looking at people that want to develop here is exciting to me.
Mhm.
Getting A&W back is exciting. It makes me think of a kid. When I was a kid here, those things are exciting for our community to see that um, people your leadership here at the chamber just doing this podcast, always thinking forward thinking,
Mhm.
and not living in the past.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, in my first tenure as chief, that's the leadership was, this is the past, we're living in the past.
Mhm.
And I think that we have an opportunity to move forward and develop our community, and um, I think that's what we need,
Mhm.
and that's exciting to me. So I know our community is going to look a lot different in 10 years from now, because I
But
look at,
change and growth is
oh,
necessary.
yep.
Yeah.
I look at when I drove around in 1993, in April 93, when I came back as patrol officer and worked nights, and I drove around and I drive around now and I look at the development is just
The
astonishing.
changes that have
Yeah.
taken place over
And I
that
think that's going
time.
to be magnified moving forward. COVID certainly drove people north, and they saw the beauty that we have here. And I think that certainly opened some people's eyes to a beautiful area that we have.
And the opportunity that's here,
Yeah.
it really is abundant. There are a
Yeah.
lot of different job paths and different career options for people that, there is a lot of opportunity in
Yeah.
Rhinelander.
Yeah, and being on Partners in Education Pie and seeing what they're doing for students to get their vision out of being a junior or a sophomore or a senior, but beyond that, and bring that vision to them at that age so they can look down the road and see those opportunities, I think is absolutely amazing. Compared to when I was in school in the 80s, there was talk about career paths, but to what they do today and the opportunity they have is phenomenal. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about our community. There's certainly challenges. PFAS is a huge challenge, but unlike other communities who are just sticking their head in their sand, we're addressing it. We're looking at it. How do we make it better? Because quality drinking water is essential. We take quality water for granted up here until recently. Like, whoa, there's impact for the decisions that were made 50 years ago that we're unfortunately reaping today. And what decisions are we making today that 50 years from now people will be either happy for or reaping from? So building forward and not repairing is I think is huge. Having that mindset and making decisions for that, and not being short-sighted, but looking long term for the betterment of our community, for the people that live here, for people that are born here. That yeah, there's other opportunities in life in different places, and it's good to travel because then you really get to see what you missed. But you also learned what you had here locally when you were living here.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting. Our future here is bright. Might have to wear shades. It's so bright, but we have great opportunities.
Okay, is there anything else that
I would just end by saying that I've thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity I've had during my 35 years to serve people. I always thought I did the best I could at the opportunities that I was given. There's not a lot I would do differently in my career. It's just a great opportunity, and I think it was a career that I had no idea I was going to do. I joke that maybe from watching Chips as a kid, maybe that's why I got into it. But certainly meeting Tony Paris, and then as I look, you start your career, and just like when you're in school and you're like in fifth grade, you're like, oh my goodness, I got another 6 years of this. And then before you know, you're done. And then just like you start a career and you're like, oh, I got 30 or 40 years to do. And then you snap your finger and it's gone, But I really enjoyed it. I thank the community for their support over the years, especially as chief. I've had speechless at the support I had from people. And the struggles that that I've gone through, and the support of family and friends, and has been awesome. So I really am very appreciative, and I thank the community for that.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of the chamber and the business community and everything, like, thank you for your dedication to Rhinelander. It hasn't gone unnoticed. So
thank you.
I really appreciate that you took the time to sit and talk with me and share your background and your leadership perspective. It's certainly, I mean, you did the book review when I went through leadership. Like, it's directly affected me, and I think about all of the people that it has, affected and through the years. And just thank you for your commitment to our area over the last 35 plus years. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching our Real Rhinelander podcast. Tune in next month. And thank you, Lloyd. I'm so appreciative that you were able to sit down with me.
Thank you.